I'll try that again. Good afternoon. This session of the Hamilton City School Board will be called to open. Mr. Frazier, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Baker?
Here?
Mrs. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Davidson?
Here.
Mr. Isgrove?
He's not here.
I apologize, this is an old form. Dr. Kopitz?
Here.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes, I am here.
That was funny. We need to stand.
Steve's at home saying, here.
We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First, we've got an approval of our previous meeting's minutes. Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Let's try this again. Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Kopitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Holbrook, I believe that we've got Garfield Middle School.
Yeah, we have two building updates for you this evening, and we're going to start off with Josh Marjoram and his administrative team and selected teachers that he's brought to speak to you about the great things that are happening at Garfield Middle School. So, Mr. Marjoram, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
All right. First off, just want to thank everybody for letting us highlight some things tonight about Garfield Middle School. One of the things that has been most important to us this school year, and is always important at a school building, I believe, is creating a culture in which not only the students want to be there, but also the teachers want to be a part of that culture. One of the things we're going to talk about tonight, which I believe is very important, we always talk about consistency for our students. I think one of the most important things that remains consistent is the great teaching staff that we have. So what are we doing to retain that great teaching staff? So we're going to address some of those things tonight that we are doing at Garfield. So first, not to be doom and gloom, but I do want to share a few national statistics about teacher shortages currently. I think it's very important we acknowledge this problem and that we're doing things to address this problem. So a few things that we pulled out here about this is that 2022, they did a poll about occupational burnout. And actually, first on that poll, at the top of that list, was K-12 teachers. Also, looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, prior to COVID, there was 500,000 more teachers across the country than there is currently. Most of that, if you look at it, 200,000 of those 500,000 are just vacant positions that are being unfilled because of shortages. I want to draw your attention to those two graphics at the bottom because I believe these are very telling to why that could be. If you look at the bottom there, that pie chart on the left, the dark green there, that was from 1970. Those were the top bachelor's degrees in the country. That dark green was education-related fields in 1970, 21% of those bachelor's degrees were education-related fields. Flash forward to 2020, doing that same study. The dark green there, that's 4%, is education-related fields. So that's when we're looking at graduates currently in the teaching field. To put that in perspective, in that same period of time from 1970 to 2020, college admission went up by 150%, but the amount of people getting bachelor's degrees in education went down by 50%. So, like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time on doom and gloom. So what are we doing to address this on a small scale at Garfield Middle School? We pulled out three things that we found very powerful out of these studies from the previous slide. Number one, 58% of teachers that said they wanted to remain in the teaching profession said it was because they felt there was meaning to their work. They had a purpose for what they were doing. 39% of teachers polled said another reason they wanted to stay in the teaching profession is the sense of community at their building, that culture that we talked about on the first slide, and although that sense of collaboration amongst staff. And then on the flip side, some teachers were saying they were leaving the profession because of increased behaviors that had increased drastically in recent years. 80% of public schools across the country stated a drastic increase in their buildings for behaviors, with the emphasis of 56% on average of classroom disruptions going up. So what we're going to do in this presentation is take these three things and what are we doing at Garfield to tackle each of these things: purpose, collaboration, and behavior. So first, let's talk about giving teachers purpose for what they're doing. John Hattie talks a lot about collective teacher efficacy, which he says is one of the most effective ways to make a school more successful. And what that means is basically it's the belief collectively that all the teaching staff share that says we believe that we can make an impact on student learning. What you see in these pictures here, something we did to build this with our teachers. This was a PD day earlier this year at Garfield. We were having Garfield teaching staff. We picked out specific staff that were doing really effective things with our students, not having an outside person come in and say, well, this is what we did at our school here. Actually taking effective teachers at Garfield that are doing great things. And we had them lead PDs throughout the day for some of our staff so that some of those things could spread around the building. What I want to talk about more in depth, though, is that collaboration. And in order to do that, I want to introduce you to Alyssa Sliger and Matt Wilson.
Good evening. There's an old proverb that says shared joy is double joy. And at Garfield, we have worked to create a community of trust and a community of collaboration and camaraderie through both our teacher-based teams and also our building leadership team. And within these meetings, we are able to share, to celebrate those triumphs individually to the group, both in and out of the classroom. And that community has truly enriched each of our teaching experience and certainly has truly been double joy. And if it's true that shared joy is double joy, then it's also true that shared pain is half the pain. And the day-to-day struggles of educators, the setbacks, the stumbles, they've been minimized, okay, with the family that we are establishing. And we've been able to make the heaviest loads become light as we live together. And it's been kind of a beautiful thing to witness and to see that half the pain truly is half the pain when you can get a people to come together.
Hi, I'm Alyssa, and I'm going to go over the teacher-based teams. Teacher-based teams are not new. They've been around for many years. I've been at Garfield for 31, and we have done the cycle of teacher-based teams over and over again. However, in the past, even though we followed the steps exactly, it wasn't a very positive and effective experience. This year, however, it turned magical. It was just like in the textbooks where you read it and you think, this can't be, and it was. And we started to talk about it at the building leadership team. Why did this change happen? And the change happened because the culture at Garfield changed. This year, suddenly everybody started to buy in to being supported, respected, appreciated. All of that then let people feel like they can open up, that they could be more honest, that they could show their weaknesses. And therefore, when we came to those teacher-based teams and we talked about, hey, we're really having trouble with this or the other, they were more authentic and open conversations. And then people were more likely to learn ideas and share ideas. And as a result, our meetings have been extremely productive. As you can see, now we have shared responsibility of student successes throughout, like our 8th grade science department, everybody shares every single student's movement towards reaching our goals. We've had the development and implementation of common assessments. Best practices are consistently utilized, and suddenly now the data has become a powerful tool for evidence-based decision-making. And one would be overwhelmed with joy for having this at the teacher level. But it didn't stop there. We were able to then bring that to the building leadership team, where each of the department heads then shared our successes and our challenges. And as a result, we had meaningful conversations that led to building-wide change. It was no longer just a change in a single classroom or a single department, but an entire school where everybody bought into it. Examples of that have been the RACE, which is like writing response, reflection, guidance, vocabulary, also increasing stamina with our students as they're doing challenging educational activities. And now I'd like to introduce Alice Rose and Shelley Beimer.
Good. I was going to say good evening, but I think it's still afternoon. So good afternoon. I hope you all are well. And again, thank you. So as stated by Mr. Marjoram, classroom disruption, student behaviors, and the social emotional needs of our students, it's rising. And so I'm really excited just to showcase and highlight some of our responses to attack these increased behaviors. So this year we empowered our teachers to design and implement and monitor classroom management plans that meet their styles versus a rigid grievance system that we had building-wide previously. At the beginning of the year, we met with all of our teachers. We gave them essential components, models, and most importantly, we gave them time to collaborate with their colleagues to create these classroom management plans that meet their styles. I do want you to know those classroom management plans, they were given to administration just so that we could have familiarity with those and for our approval and support. Next, to support those classroom management plans, we created a centralized DT system where teachers are able to assign after-school detentions. And in addition, and this has been pretty powerful, we revamped our BIC program. And we have created an environment in there that is more focused on skill work. There is a reflection component that we are very proud of. And we have created an environment that's going to deter those reoccurring disruptions. In addition, our students are participating daily in a 30-minute advisory where they are utilizing Second Step. And within that program, they are fine-tuning their social emotional skills. Advisory time is also a time where teachers are checking in on their grades and assisting them and getting caught up if they need to, or just that extra intervention time. Furthermore, our PBIS systems, we are fine-tuning those, and we're fine-tuning those based on data. And those, too, are led by 2 teacher teams versus top-down approach. Next, we are holding our monthly MTSS meetings with all administrators, counselors, and our school psych, and we really value and hold true to this time on our calendar. This is where our teachers are submitting names along with whatever their current interventions are. Our team at that time, we make recommendations, we assist, and we help them monitor the progress of those students. Our counselors, we have the best counselors at Garfield Middle School, no offense to any other building, but I truly believe that. They do continue to be champions for our students' mental health needs, our families' mental health needs. They are using that referral system with fidelity, and they are connecting students and families to those mental health specialists to serve our building and our community. Next, Garfield, we are also continuing to embrace the teaming model. Teachers share a group of students. They utilize that extended morning time, and they are creating plans for students when those challenges in behavior arise. And finally, at Garfield, we have a new mantra, and we really like this. It's simple: work hard and be a good person. And through that, we are holding our students to very high expectations. We are teaching them accountability, which is an area of growth for many of our students. And finally, we really do look for any opportunity we can to celebrate their success. So, Mrs. Beimer?
Really easy for us to say we're doing all these things for teachers and come up here and say we feel like everything's going great, but we would like to have some data to support this. So we sent a survey out to teachers, and as a result of that, we've determined that 94% of teachers believe they have enough autonomy in their classroom and they feel like they're in control of their learning space, which is something we were seeking out with the systems that we were putting in place. 1,138 less discipline referrals have crossed mine and Mrs. Rose's desk this year. That less paperwork has led to more visibility in the building. So 98% of teachers now feel that we are more visible in the building, and then tardiness decreased by 81%. So all of the data that we're collecting is indicating that less discipline referrals is allowing for more visibility, leading to less discipline referrals. So overall, I believe that we are able to create the culture that Mr. Marjorum's seeking to create. And we do have 2 teachers here, but the data shows that all of our teachers believe this system is working.
All right. So we'll leave this time open for questions. And we had to post this picture because the future is still bright for Big Blue basketball. There's the 8th grade GMC champions.
Yes.
So there we go. Any questions?
Josh, thank you. I know that this was your dream to go to Garfield, and it's obvious from your leadership what you're creating, a team environment, positive results, and positive output from your teachers. I love the fact that you give them the autonomy to do their job. I'm a firm believer in that. And it shows. And so thank you for all that you do and for all of your staff and teachers. And I know junior high is not an easy time for anybody. And I would never have done very well. That was not my goal in life, to be a teacher, and I especially wouldn't want to be a junior high teacher. So kudos to you guys.
Different breeds.
Yeah.
Different breeds.
Thank you so much for being here and presenting and sharing all the great things that are going on, and also your presentation of bringing even more awareness to the data about teachers. But I want to applaud you guys for working hard and being good people.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, definitely want to applaud you guys for working hard and being good people, and standing up and being great role models for our students that they would aspire to want to be educators in the future. So definitely appreciate you guys for definitely doing that, and just the environment and the culture that you have created over at Garfield and with the students. So it's definitely amazing, and it's always great to hear when discipline is down, because again, you all being able to be visible and be able to be seen and have those interactions with our students, it definitely changes the narrative of middle school and discipline and getting in trouble. So I definitely really applaud that, your efforts on being very intentional about that as they begin to move on into high school, and we'll move over to the 9th grade building and then move over into the big high school setting. So I definitely again applaud you guys for your efforts and just the uniqueness in the way you educate our students. So it's always great.
Thank you.
You know what's interesting? It's been in the news the last couple of weeks about some universities, or small colleges, I should say, closing down because enrollment's down.
Mm-hmm.
Kids just aren't going from high school to college anymore.
Right.
And if you talk to the professors at Miami and UC and other schools, people going into education are way down. Classes are way down. So we have a crisis now that's only going to get worse. And we even have a bigger crisis, is keeping teachers in education.
Right.
These young teachers get a taste of it after a year or two and say, I don't want this. And a lot of it is they just don't feel supported. And I think what you're doing is you're going to retain a lot of teachers. And
so.
you're making them feel, and they're going to feel appreciated. And I think that goes hand in hand with what Dr. Kopis has been doing, getting out to the buildings, talking to the teachers and the principals, and letting them know that we appreciate them and what they're doing. And we need to do more of that.
Josh, I just want to thank you for the hard work you've done. If this is what you've accomplished in, 6-7 months, and I know it's been a hard row, and it's getting people to buy into what you're doing. But having teachers not have to be lockstep on what they do in a classroom is so important. You're right. Every teacher has their own discipline style. And if they provide a plan that works for them and you guys approve it, I think it's wonderful. When I see that number, 1,138, I'm like, if you just spend 5 minutes on one referral, which never happens, it's usually chasing.
I wish, yeah.
Yeah, I wish, chasing down the kid. I think we're just going to need one assistant. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no. But
That was 138. I'm sorry. It was 138. Yeah.
Still 2 months left.
yeah, there's yeah. But to see that number, and I know heavy loads with middle school kids. I understand that. You're right. It frees you up to get out into the building and make better relationships. It's a cycle, and the more that you're stuck in the office dealing with discipline, the less time you can be out in the building, really making a difference in your building. So I just love what you're doing. I love that you're doing the BIC. I love the centralized detention. I know how hard that is sometimes to put together, but those give you different options than just suspending a kid or expelling a kid, and especially the BIC. I've done the BIC stuff and having students writing reflections about it, but from what I'm hearing on the streets, there's a big difference in what's going over there this year, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And not just you. I know it's a team effort, but it's all of you working together to create a better environment for our kids, and they're just going to blossom from that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Principal Marjoram, I've got a couple comments also. First of all, I want to say thank you for hosting me on the school visit a few weeks ago. And also, I want to reference some of your opening comments about the educational field and people going into it and how difficult and yet how important it is for us to attract and retain great educators. You're absolutely right, it is. And I know our administration, and I do believe that my fellow board members are certainly interested in doing that also. Your data is very impressive, but most impressive to me is your visibility in the building. And I know when I was there with you and you were showing me around and teaching me different things, people knew you, they recognized you, they were very comfortable engaging with you. So I respect that and congratulate you on all of the great things you want to do or that you're doing. But lastly, I want to say, and I apologize to the young lady, did I hear you correct when you said you've been at Garfield for 31 years? Yeah. Just have to say that.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you. I can't tell you how much I respect that. I love teachers, and man, tremendous amount of respect and admiration for that. So thank you so much for that.
But if I may, I remember your interview because she was interviewing with Mr. Alf, weren't you?
Yes.
So nervous, so nervous. It was, and to see after all these years how, and because I've known you for many years, and what you've done over there is great. But I still remember you shaking in that office because I think I was interviewing for the assistant principalship, and I was nervous too. So, but I went with Harold. So anyway, but thank you so much for being over there and making it. You really made a difference in students' lives. Thank you.
These two are great leaders. I just want to say that a lot of the things we're doing, like they're very helpful in.
Mr. Marjoram, I want to commend you as well as your staff. And you talked a little bit about teaming. You talked a little bit about middle school. And I spent about 10 years of my career in that field as a teacher and later as an administrator. And I'm a big advocate of teaming. Students that are middle school age, they're not elementary students, but they aren't quite ready to be high school students either. And there is a niche for that. And sometimes we forget that. And I think that's an important piece. But, you know, all of these structures we talk about, they're great. They don't happen without people and people buying in and people working. And I see you've reduced discipline by a tremendous amount. And what that tells me is that prior to that, when you were administering discipline, it wasn't changing the behavior nearly as much as what we would like, because and so, you know, our goal of discipline in most cases is to change behavior, and we're seeing that. You know, I look forward to you continuing the teaming. I look forward to having some discussions with you about how maybe we can expand on what you're doing now, because empowering the teams and empowering them will directly impact students in a positive way. And so I thank all of you for the work you've done and will continue to do over there. Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Bridgeport Elementary with their building update.
Yes, I have building principal Stephanie Oakes and assistant principal Becky Davis here from Bridgeport, and they're here to give us an update on Bridgeport Elementary. Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. I'm Stephanie Oakes, the principal at Bridgeport. I'm here with Mrs. Davis, my assistant principal, and we have some special people here with us today that are going to be sharing a few words about the great things that are happening at Bridgeport as well. So I want to dive in first to our building goals that are at Bridgeport, and these are going to sound familiar to what you heard last year because we're making progress and we want to continue to make progress. So the first goal we have is to improve growth and achievement for all students. So we've started to make growth in all areas. We're starting to see achievement that is increasing. And today we want to highlight the intervention systems that we're providing at Bridgeport that's showing that students are growing. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about Amplify Dibbles, which is a program the district has provided that has really allowed us to dive into what are the needs of our students. And you're going to see from some data that we show you that it is making our students grow. It's going to get us to that building goal that we have. So we do want to highlight our intervention team. So these are 4 ladies that we work with consistently, along with our literacy coach. And we analyze data together, and we make instructional decisions together to make sure that the students are moving in the right direction. So I want to give you just an overview of this data snapshot right here. So Amplify is looking at foundational skills in reading. And you can see that there are 4 different squares here. They are looking at students that are well below where they should be, below benchmark, at benchmark, and above benchmark. And when you're looking at this report, the top line is showing where students were when we first assessed them in the fall. So now we have winter data, which is showing those bar graph looking things there in the middle. And that is how we know our students are growing. So if you look to the far left, 107 students were well below benchmark coming into Bridgeport in the fall. In the winter, right underneath that, we now only have 69 students that are well below. And this is through all of K3. So we had 27 students that moved to below, 11 students that moved to benchmark, and that's in just half a year of instruction. So we're excited because what we're looking at and what we're focusing on with our intervention programs is showing that it's working. You can see, like if you look at our second box, where there were 43 students that were below, there were 8 students that fell well below. So for us, that's a red flag. We need to dive into who are those 8 students and what is going on to make sure that we continue to push them in the right direction.
So kind of building on what Mrs. Oakes just shared. So what we do is we look at that data at each benchmarking window, and we meet as a team with those intervention teachers facilitated by us as administrators and Katie Jordan, our literacy coach, and we look at their progress in each area of instruction. So we can take that composite score and break it down to individual skills. How did they do on phonemic awareness, on phonics, with blending words into oral reading fluency? And then we're able to dig dig in, and that this actually gives us an instructional focus that we can start with and talk about as a team. So what we have here is this snapshot of what a teacher would see. So we meet as that intervention team, and we'll say, okay, let's look at the data for this student. Were they in intervention before? Have they, how have they progressed? What is their instructional focus now? So that bar that we have over there shows where the student names would have been. So it tells us that those students that are covered up by that bar need phonemic awareness intervention. And here are resources you can use to teach that. And our intervention team looks closely at that. And then we also talk about whether other resources could be pulled in to support those instructional focuses. That next group down, focus on letter and sound knowledge. And then that last one, there's a group who's ready for decoding. So at that intervention meeting, we're able to really dig in and look at why did those students who did drop into a lower category, where was the skill deficit that we can now build up? So we adjust instruction as needed, add students to intervention as needed, and determine if we're ready to fade intervention as appropriate. So here's just a quick snapshot of what we also see. So we're working in that MTSS process where we are monitoring progress regularly, and then we meet, in addition to these the intervention team meeting, we meet as a grade level MTSS team. So we can pull up graphs like the ones I have here that show those progress monitoring points. So these are just two little samples of looking at how, a student started in that below category, but then you can see all the individual points of where they scored when the intervention team is monitoring progress or a classroom teacher is monitoring progress. And then we can, again, determine, do we need to intensify intervention, move instructional focuses, fade the intervention? So we have really gotten our system down as to how we dig more deeply into this data to look at the students' individual areas to see where we can meet their needs. So here we have a few snapshots of those awesome intervention teachers in place. Some of the groups you'll see are small groups. Some of them students do meet one-on-one, and occasionally there will be a time where it's just a quick, I have an extra 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to do a very quick intervention here on that area of instructional need to support that student, and they continue to monitor that progress. So we have seen a lot of growth between benchmarks, but then we're also able to take the temperature in between those benchmarks to see where students are performing. So like I told you, we do use those lessons that come in that platform where it was saying what their instructional need was and what lessons can we use to support that. We also use things such as Orton Gillingham and other resources that our literacy coach supports our intervention team and teachers with. So we're really excited about this work this year. Okay, so moving on to our second building goal. Again, like Mrs. Oaks said, we're working on still shoring up that PBIS. We're going to strengthen our positive school culture and student support through implementation of a structured PBIS program. So what we're trying to do is not just build that student culture, we're building teacher culture, we're building an entire school community. So we're working really hard to try to make sure that, we're supporting students, we're supporting teachers, and we are building that community where people are happy to be at work, happy to be at school, and are thriving. Here we have some pictures of some of those incentives that we give to students as they're progressing through this PBIS system. So our Tier 1 system has tools such as Cool Cats that you can get. It's a little ticket. I believe if you were here last year, we gave you a Cool Cat ticket. You can give those to students who are showing the Bobcat Way around the building, and then we do a drawing on Fridays for different prizes, incentives that they all seem to very much enjoy. We give out Team Paw Prides, and those are to a class as a whole. So for example, today I was actually doing a PBIS refresher, like how did quarter 3 go? How do we start quarter 4 strong? And the students came out, it was like a dream. They were doing a great job as a class. So I said, that class gets a Team Paw Pride. So they're working as a class to earn that incentive that is set by the classroom and by the teacher so they know what they're working toward. So we also have Classroom Dojo points where students can earn points, and then at the end of the month we have an incentive that's school-wide and school-run that if they have a 90% or higher percentage of positive points, then they get to attend that incentive. So we also have added some new systems that kind of build on that because we looked at our Tier 1 systems and talked about that data in our PBIS team meeting and noticed that cafeteria and bus were areas where we were seeing maybe a higher level of referrals or a higher level of teachers needing to intervene and support students. So we put in our Cafe Cool Cats. So that's where it's a different color of Cool Cat ticket, and you put that in a special bin in the cafeteria, and then we draw for those on Fridays, and they just get to eat on the stage. We have games there, and you would be surprised how motivated they are by eating on the stage. They get to invite a friend. We also have bus paw prides that the bus drivers can give out, similar to those group team paw prides as well. So again, I kind of referenced every quarter we've been doing these grade level meetings where we talk about what's the referral data look like? You know, what are our celebrations? And we send a survey to teachers and say, what would you like for us to talk about with your grade level that we could reinforce and support for the next quarter? So this quarter, we sent it to the whole building so that people who may see that grade level in other capacities could also give input on what we could cover. So we found a lot of success with that. So we started with reviewing the Bobcat Way, and then we go into those celebrations, and then we say, okay, so where can we grow? What can we focus on? And those have been successful. We just wrapped those up this week. So students have responded well to those.
So in order for us to be effective in goal 1 of having growth and achievement for all of our students, we know that we need to be successful in goal 2, to have that positive support and culture for all staff and students. So looking at data to see how we're doing, this is looking at from August to February over the past 3 years. So this first year, just from August to February, we had 442 referrals. That was the 21-22 school year. And that was before we had a solid Tier 1 PBIS system in place. So last year, we implemented this new system as we were a new leadership team together, and we were able to drop last year to 388 referrals at this same time period. We kept our systems the same. You heard we've added a few things based on where the data showed there was a need. And now this year, in this same time period, we're down to 279 referrals. So while the numbers are important to us, Mr. Holbrook took the words right out of my mouth. It's about changing the behaviors. And our teachers will hear us say that when we talk about, well, what's the consequence going to be? What is this going to look like? The first thing on our mind is how do we help support the student and change the behavior so that we're not seeing that same student over and over again. And then we know as these numbers are coming down, they're spending less time with us or less time at home and more time in the classroom so that we can meet that growth and achievement for all students. So in addition to the students, we believe it's important for our staff to have a positive culture. So we did survey the staff. We send out a quarterly survey, and we ask several questions just to see how things are going, compare how's quarter 1 to quarter 2. There's always highs and lows in the year. But an important question that we ask is, where do you believe our school is working well? And so if you're familiar with these word clouds, the bigger the word is, the more people said that same answer over and over. So we were excited to see these answers because you can see PBIS, staff culture, supportive culture. Those are things that we have taken time to be thorough and intentional about, and it's paying off. Teachers are feeling that within the building. So I want to highlight a group of students and a couple teachers that are part of our Bobcat Council because in addition to the staff culture, it's important that there's student culture so that we get that community feeling that Mrs. Davis was speaking of. So I'm going to invite Mrs. Perkiser and Mrs. Knight to tell you about Bobcat Council, and then 3 of our students, Michaela, Bryn, and Audrey.
I'm Mrs. Knight. You didn't see double, I was actually up there earlier. I am one of the 4 teachers that oversee Bobcat Council at Bridgeport. And we have around 35 students, all who placed an application in that selected to be part of this group. And they function as like a student council of sort, like you might see at the junior high or the high school. And we do lots of projects in through the school, and a couple we venture out for, and just try to build the leadership skills and empathy and all of those wonderful things that we want our young children to have. So I'm going to let Ms. Perkaiser speak really quick and let you know a little bit about kind of the projects that we do here.
So one of the goals is to teach leadership. All of the students in Bobcat Council are 4th, 5th, or 6th graders, and yes, they have applied, and they had to show what their kind of goals were for the building, what those plans are for an effective leadership in the student body. So one of those things that we kind of have done as a group is obviously increase knowledge around the school and have the students become leaders with their peers. We do fundraisers for Bobcat Council. We have done that through making boograms, which that first picture, we had a whole assembly line before school. It was fabulous, of the kids putting together little sucker like boograms. They look like little ghosts. It was actually really fun, and it worked smoothly. They worked great together. And so we've done that for Halloween. We did the boograms. We did a candy cane gram at Christmas, and then we also did a candy gram at Valentine's. So they can send them to their friends throughout the building, other teachers, whoever they would like to send their candy grams to. And November, we did gathered food donations for Serve City. So there we were showing the importance of helping our community and those that are maybe less fortunate. So we did raise donations for Serve City. Also, one of the things that we do a lot is try to build that encouragement from Bobcat Council members to the other students. So for Thanksgiving, we did thankful leaves in the hallway. So they wrote things that they were thankful for, things that they were feeling positive about. And then we also have one, we've had only one meeting for March, but as soon as we come back from spring break, we start testing. So we did a do not stress, and we colored donuts and put test-taking strategies on it. So those will be hanging when everybody comes back from spring break to kind of help with that whole testing season. We have also, some meetings we do more of a presentation, and we focused a lot of things on self-esteem. 4th, 5th, and 6th grade can still be a challenging time for kiddos. So we want them to have, strong self-esteem and those leadership skills. So we sometimes do little activities with them in the meetings to kind of build those skills, as well as I'm an MD teacher in one of the units. So I did a whole presentation on inclusion and acceptance of the students in your building that may be different from you. So we did focus on that. And then coming up for Earth Day, we will be cleaning the park on Park Avenue and D Street. That is our neighborhood park, so we will go and clean that for Earth Day. So those are just some of the activities that we have done and one that we have coming up.
Can I just hit the next one? Okay. One of the programs that we started this year that I think we're the most proud of is a program called Bobcat Buddies. And so the students in Bobcat Council are assigned to a teacher in K through 2 and in some of the MD rooms as well. And so what they do is for around a half an hour, first thing in the morning, they go downstairs and they are paired up with a younger student. And they take that time to either help them get caught up with their work, or if there's an area that they're struggling in a little bit, the peer helps them with those things. It's been really kind of magical to watch, and you see a lot of relationships forming with the big kids and the little kids, and it just really builds culture in the school. So I'm gonna let them speak for themselves and tell you what they like about it.
Hi, my name is Michaela Henry. I am a member of Bobcat Council. Bobcat Council, so tutor a class, Miss Creech's class. I do Aaliyah. I help her with Zern, and I love whenever I see her learn this stuff. And whenever I see that, it helps me remember the stuff that I learned whenever I was her age, and it brings all that stuff back to me, and I start remembering more stuff from whenever I was younger, and it like is, oh, I remember doing that, and it like helps me whenever I'm in class, because it helped me remember my math stuff and reading stuff, but mostly math because I help her with Zern. So, yeah, thank you.
My name is Audrey Johnson, and I'm the Bobcat Buddies for Mrs. Stratford's class. I get to work with other people and help them with their work. I really enjoy working with all of them, and the best part of working with them is doing different activities with them. Thank you.
I am Fred Marshall, and I'm the Bobcat Buddy for Ms. Castania's class. I get to work with Carson and help him with reading. I really like how he loves the books being read to him. And the best part of working with him is how much he listens and pays attention to the book. Thank you.
All right, thank you to our speakers. We hope that you have seen how at Bridgeport we are working very hard to grow greatness. And at this time, we'll open it up to any questions.
Nice presentation. Thank you so much, and what you're doing over at Bridgeport. I can't say enough about these young people getting up here and speaking. I can't imagine it when I was that age if I could have done it. So good job. Good job there. And I love that, having that council too, as far as activities. I always say this is the favorite part of the meetings for me, to see what we're doing with our young elementary students, and you're doing a great job, and we really appreciate all the hard work, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree with Mag. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, families, for coming and be a part of this meeting with us. I appreciate you bringing the kids here, and thank you for bringing some of your greatness here to show us, just some of the great things that's going on over at Bridgeport. And I wish I would have had me some Bobcat buddies when I was in school.
Yeah.
Sheesh. Math used to get me going. I'm trying to tell you what. But listen, I appreciate it, and the environment you guys are creating, and just the great things that you're doing for the staff and the students as well, and just creating those councils, because that's how we, engage and have our future leaders and future board members and all those good things that we have, and for getting out in the community and collaborate as well, because those things are super, super, super important to show community, and that our kids see the value of, one, our education system, and then as well as our community, and that this will be somewhere that they will one day hopefully want to have their family and, be a part as well. So we thank you for introducing that even at the elementary level, and that they'll continue to grow. And so thank you, ladies, for being here. Greatly appreciate you guys sharing what you do. Continue to keep up the great work. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I agree. It's very impressive what you're doing over there. I shared with the school board members this morning an article that was in the paper about a survey that went out post-COVID with students. And we all know the effects that COVID had on the students. The governor closing down the schools, remote learning, and there were discipline problems after that. And we're seeing in the greater Cincinnati area, this article was about, how we're tackling that issue, and those problems are coming less and less. And I think this council, this Bobcat Council, helps with that, because it gets students together and they know how to interact and treat each other. And the Bobcat tutoring, that is just awesome. Having a sixth grader work with a third grader or a second grader. And, that's just great. And I think it's helping with the issues that we have, and keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Dave, I'd have to agree. I'm very impressed. Very good job, ladies. Very good. Obviously that you're proud to be able to do these things, but and it's probably a hard time sometimes, right? So, but overall, pretty cool. I like talking about mental health. Helping one another is a big component. Helping your community with the Surf City and things of that sort. Reaching out and doing the parks. Great ideas of getting students involved. Two things popped out that, as an old principal, and I know old. So, number one, the idea of the awards for the cafeteria, introducing PBIS, that component. I know how crazy it can be over at all the elementaries, but especially over there. I think that's a great plan. One of the things I had not seen, I don't think any of us had seen before, was the graph of discipline referrals. And it's amazing to me to see, I would love to find ways for principals to find out, how do you get away from those big bumps? How do you, I mean, you obviously have something's going on. I'm sure it's inside and no recess or no outside recess and stuff. But looking at, when you're using data, using that type of image really pops out to say, hey, there's things we can do here. And I think that's wonderful. I just appreciate you guys making working on the culture of your school and making it a community. And that's what we're hearing as we go through all these presentations, is hearing how each of our schools administrators, and I'm sure Mr. Holbrook probably pushed it, I don't know, but the idea that you are a community, and how do you take care of your community? How do you use the data for your community? You're doing a great job on that, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Principal Oakes, just a few comments also. Again, I want to thank you for hosting me on a school visit recently. And I want to share with you, in your presentation, you were talking about intervention systems and things like that, and you had some interesting data. But not only as we toured your school, as I went through other schools, I met several teachers that were new to our district. And I would always ask them, why did you want to come to Hamilton? And part of their answer was because of the intervention systems and the support structures that we have in place in Hamilton. So I compliment our district for doing that, because I wasn't aware. I thought all districts had that, but apparently that's not the case. So it's great to see it working well in your school, and I know it's working well also in our other facilities. The Bobcat peer tutoring, what a great idea. I could have used that a few years ago, taking neuroanatomy in dental school. But I think that's a great idea. You know, what a wonderful way just to build relationships among the students. And in closing, I would say I have somewhat of a confession and then a question for you. While I love all of our schools, Bridgeport might be my favorite, okay?
I'll take it.
Now, well, that's my confession, but do you know why?
Well, I would think it's your family
It's because I have 2 grandkids that go to school there. And this is how I know you must be doing a great job, because whenever I talk to them, they tell me they love school. So I compliment you and your staff, and just thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I want to begin my remarks by recruiting these 3 phenomenal young ladies. About 10 years from now, when you graduate from college and education, come back, we'll hire you as teachers. Because that's really kind of what you're doing a little bit. You're getting the first taste of working with someone else. And I heard all 3 of you say how rewarding that is. And that's exciting for me to hear. I think a lot of times kids can learn from kids. I think that's important, and I think you're integrating all of that into your Bobcat Council, and I applaud that. Katie, I don't want to. You're sitting there. You haven't had a part in this. I do want to recognize we have our literacy coach, Katie Jordan, here, and she really helps assist a lot of things on the literacy side in that building. Stephanie and Becky, one of the things that I heard over and over again, and it's something that we've pushed for a long time, is the culture of data-driven decisions, and the fact that you're making decisions based off data, and that goes back to individualizing the needs of students. And I think that that's a really important component. We're not throwing a dart at the dartboard and guessing what a student needs. We're using this data and then using that to drive what we do next based off the results of that. And I think that's really important. That has been a long haul to get to that decision making, but we've seen the results of that. We talked about PBIS, and you got 2 sides of that cone. You got the academic side, you have the behavioral side, and we're seeing huge gains on both sides of that. And so I thank both of you for your leadership. You know, that there's a lot thrown at our building administrators every day, and you know, you're handling that well. You're moving our kids, you're motivating your staff, and those are all important things. I also want to compliment our teachers that are here. You know, I started this 33 years ago, and the job's changed an awful lot in 33 years. And I just want to compliment each one of you every single day on what you do. You are making a difference every single day with our kids. And there may be days that you go home and you're a little frustrated. That's with any job, with anything. But you start looking at that year in and year out, and you're making a huge difference every day. And I thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Being able to get up there to speak. Yeah.
If I have one grandson, though, you put him up there and he'd still be talking. Give him an audience.
Go home, download this meeting using the first reference.
I couldn't either. Okay, next on the agenda, staff forum. I believe Dr. Kopis.
Yes, Ms. Baker, last meeting you had requested some information on that, which I have for us this evening. I'll pass these down to Ms. Blevins and Mr. Frazier. And I think I have the right number. Ms. Matthews, if you'll just pass those down the line. That's just an agenda and an explanation of the intent. And of course, we all understand that that's subject to change pending other actions in our district. But that should give you a better idea of what we're trying to accomplish.
If you give me just a second so
Sure,
we can take
sure.
a look at it. Everybody had a chance to read that? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kopis.
Okay.
And I understand the last point of your of this, that there's no malicious intent, and I truly believe that. I still struggle with the concept of doing a staff forum without knowing what we already do from a communication perspective from the administration out, and how many other forums we have for this. I guess part of my concern is that I feel as though we're continuing to go around administration in a way, and what are we truly trying to accomplish when I see that, the positive feedback we get when people come in and talk to us, and it seems like, and individuals are already surveying at the board level, I still have concerns about it. I'm not sure that I agree with that, but that's my opinion. I do think that it kind of goes around where we go back to our policies of staff board communication, where we need to do that. I can remember Mr. Sprague saying at the last meeting, as an administrator, someone, having or approaching that he would have concerns. So I will just say that I'm still not in favor of it, but I guess I would need to see what the will of the board is. So, Mr. Sprague?
Well, I still have great reservations about doing this, and it's not that think there's a misconception that I'm against having good relationships with
Yeah.
teachers or something of that sort, but it's not that. It's what I said last time is that there's opportunities for teachers, for us to communicate through administrators. Maybe that's the way to do it. As an example, some discussions of where we're heading in the future, I'm not sure that we can even broach that subject without having administrator having discussions within the administrative ranks, because that's who we deal with. Sure, we can talk about positives, but we just did. We talk about positives with every school that comes in. We all know we have challenges, and that's where I think we run into problems when we start going down the road of, well, let's talk about the challenges we have. Well, that's why we have union the teachers are represented by union, and they have building principals, and they have building teams and stuff like that. I have grave concerns about it. That's all I can say. Personally, number one, I can't be at that meeting, but I don't know what the long-term ramifications would be in a positive way.
Mr. Davidson?
I just, well, I mean, if you don't agree with it, don't go. I mean, that's the simple thing.
But at the same time, is this a board function?
Right. It's not, Joe is having a forum with him. He's inviting people if they want to come.
But it
I don't
can't,
think
but
we're
it can't be considered a board forum in this.
It's a board member forum. It's no different than this letter going out with, I haven't seen this. But that's another subject for later. But I don't think we can prohibit it. If Joe wants to have this meeting, don't go.
He can certainly do it as a private citizen.
He can do it in his capacity as a board member.
I disagree.
Let me see if I can put this to rest, because I've had some conversation with Superintendent Holbrook about this, and he correctly pointed out that you could make an intelligent argument that the idea of this might be against some established board policies. But he also acknowledged that there is nothing legally wrong with doing that. Is that correct, Mr. Holbrook?
There's nothing legally wrong. I do think it does violate board policy 0148.1, and I expressed that to you in an email that I
You
sent
did.
a couple weeks ago. So.
You did. And I frankly disagree with that board policy, even though I know that it is in place. Now, to the other members of the board here, I hear your concerns. I understand the points that you're making. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't understand why you're so concerned about this. And I'm just going to tell you, if this is not illegal for me to do this, I promised during our campaign that this is something that I would do. So I have every intention of doing it. And I understand if it doesn't turn positive results, then we will discontinue it. But I think you might be surprised. It may be a very positive thing.
Okay,
Well, I was going to finish my comment.
go ahead.
I don't know if any of you have ever read, it was a book about Henry Ford and how he led, Ford to be the company that it is. He would once a month go and walk the factory and talk to the work. And he was chairman of the board, kind of like, everybody wants to act like we're the chairman of this, of this entity. But he would walk and talk to his employees and talk to everybody, get their feedback. What can we do better to make your life better? He didn't go through the president of Ford or the assembly manager. He went out and he talked to the people. And I think there are employees we should go out and talk to them. And I don't think there's anything.
I don't think
we have
there's anything prohibit anyone from talking to employees. I'm just saying that we are now we have union. I don't think Henry Ford had union back in those days.
He did up until
Well,
some point.
but there was,
Yeah, he did. Read the book.
I'm sorry.
No, she said no, and I said no,
Okay.
read the book.
Okay, well, but there's different avenues. Visiting schools, I don't have a problem with visiting schools. I think it's a great idea. I've been out in schools, I've met with administrators on several occasions, but to have a forum that could violate, number one, policy, and number two, may have an effect on fair labor negotiations. That's a concern, and going over the heads of administrators to come straight to the school board, to board member, to try to affect policy, I don't see a positive from it. I'm sorry.
And see, I agree with Dr. Cope. I don't agree with that policy.
Well,
And I never voted in favor of that policy. It's never
Well,
been
we
prevented.
haven't voted on a lot of policies.
I know
but
that
there's still
policy's been in place for.
There's still policies.
Right, and I think every year we should vote on the policies that we're going to adopt, and we haven't done that.
well, let me,
So I agree with him. I don't agree with it.
okay. Well, let me just make a note of that. For one thing, I believe the policy of the communication of the board, 148.1, I believe I've spoken with Mr. Holbrook that is basically the policy at almost all of the boards throughout the state. The other thing, I have the same concerns that Mr. Sprague has, that, you know, again, I think that it's saying that we don't, and I know you said this, Dr. Kopis, the other day to me, and you felt like you did not want it to appear that way, but I think it is, I find it interesting that we don't trust the administration. That's where my issue is, and I would ask you again, if before you even go out and do this teacher forum, have you sat down individually with our administrators to talk to them how they feel?
No.
And
I
why
have-
not?
Well, let me ask you this question. Am I obligated to do that?
No, you're not obligated to do it.
Understood. I'm not obligated.
Nope.
And as
And you're
Mr.
not
Ho-
obligated to visit the buildings either.
Well, and why did I choose to do that? You
You
don't
made a
know.
campaign
Well,
promise,
Joe,
I
I would
guess.
hope that you would want to know what's going on in the buildings as a school board member. I applaud you for doing that.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
think it's
should
great.
applaud me, and you're correct. And let's go back to what Principal Marjoram said. What was he talking about? Attracting and retaining great educators, right?
But again, that's an administrative function. We are not administrators. We are a board that is
That's
in charge
true.
of administration.
You're correct.
And-
But
and-
our disagreement is this. I do not see us up here at the 30,000 foot.
I don't either, Dr. Kopis.
Well, you said you did.
I'm saying that if you look at what the function of the board is, here's what the function of the board: hire the superintendent, the treasurer, set policy, be financially responsible. We hire the superintendent, the treasurer, and all of administration to run the district. We do not manage day in and day out operations. And that's where I think that you're overstepping it.
Well, I understand that you think that. I disagree with you.
I disagree with you.
Well, have it. There you go.
So here's what I'm going to say. If you also go not only to the communication, if you go to the Code of Ethics, and the Code of Ethics, if you were to review it, which is 123,
An actual code.
there is a Code of Ethics.
Revised code or?
Policy.
Okay, policy. Thank you.
Policy. I did not
Okay.
say Ohio Revised Code.
Okay, well, you said code. It is a policy. Okay.
It says, under 123, you can read through all that, and the last one is P. Express my personal opinions, but once the board has acted, accept the will of the majority. You don't have a majority here, I don't think, that thinks this is a good idea.
I would have to look at that. I'm not as familiar with that as you are. If that's binding, then it's binding.
So what I'm saying is, you're not doing anything illegal. If you want to do it as a private citizen, I don't have a problem with it. But if the rest of the board doesn't agree with that teacher forum, then I would say, Dr. Kopis, you have the right to do it as a private citizen.
Okay.
So
Now
then,
you tell me, what's the difference with me being there as a private citizen?
because you're not speaking on behalf of the board,
Not representing.
you're not representing the board.
That, you're correct.
That's right.
I don't have an issue with that.
Well, then you can do it as a private citizen and follow the protocols of utilizing the facilities.
This code of ethics, when did we vote on that? Did you vote on it, Dr. Kopis? Did you vote to accept this policy?
Well, Dave, I
Dave,
don't
this
think
has been
that's
We have a lot of
fair.
policies that are
I don't think that's
established that we have
fair.
to vote on.
We go by policy all the time that
That's
we
why
vote.
we have an organizational meeting. You should move to adopt the policies. Dr. Kopis has never discussed or accepted that policy, neither did I.
That,
So you don't think you should, just because you didn't vote on it, that's like saying there's laws in the country. I didn't vote on it, so I don't have to do it.
These aren't.
These
a
are
lot different.
policies.
A lot
right?
different. These are policies adopted 20 years ago by a different school board.
Well, but they're also part of Neola, and those things have been.
There's a lot of districts around here that don't follow these, but I know
I
there's some.
disagree with that.
Well,
But,
this is not
but
part
to
of it.
say I didn't vote on it, I
There's,
don't have
there's
to
over
vote.
500 districts in the state of Ohio that use Neola. I can tell you that. I can't tell you specifically what districts. I don't think there's some around here that do, that some that don't. But there's roughly 612 districts in the state, and over 500 do use Neola. I'm comfortable in making that statement.
But these are policies that we as a board are adopting, and that's our job, is to.
When there's
promote-
new,
to
when
the
there's new
policy.
board, yeah.
And I think we need to look at every policy.
but can I
There
ask,
might be a majority of us that don't agree with the policy.
And let me just make a comment here if I could. We can't not follow a policy if we disagree with it, but what I would say, if we disagree with a policy, we should go through the process to change it if we do disagree with it.
I have a question. Mr. Frazier, when you do the oath of office, there are references, I know, to Ohio Revised Code and the Constitution of the United States, but are there anything that references policies of the board?
Constitution and the revised.
Give me a second. But I can chime back in as soon as I do.
Well, maybe an easy solution to this would be that I will just attend this as a citizen and not as a representative for the board. I do have to say that your resistance to this is surprising, in my opinion, and also somewhat disappointing. And like I said, the intent is to foster good relations with all of our staff, which we heard that earlier. If that happens, great. If it doesn't happen, then it will be discontinued.
Dr. Kopis, I just want to make one comment. My hesitation has nothing to do with whether I think that we want to have good relationships with the employees in the district or the administrators. My concern is that we, in doing this, we are going outside of what I think the purview of the board is. And I think that this is going around administration. I don't believe, you and I disagree on this, I don't believe that I should go around the administration to find out it's not my job. My job is not to manage the day in and day out operations of this district. That's what we hire Mr. Holbrook for. And if we don't think that they're doing the job, then we move in on somebody else.
I understand your opinion, but my opinion is this. My job as a board member is not to just sit here at board meetings. And that's not what I'm going to do. So, but I will try to comply with policies and everything else. But yeah, that's not going to happen, Ms. Baker.
Well, Mr. Kopis, Dr. Kopis, with all due respect, I will continue to disagree when I feel as though you're going around policy. I will remind you of policy, but as an individual, there's nothing in the law that says you can't do it. But I really wish that, in all of these discussions that we've had about teachers, right? We're not you're not going directly to the administration, which I don't agree with either. And let's start talking about our kids. Let's start talking about the education of our students. That's just where I'm at.
I understand.
Okay.
President Baker?
Yes.
We did pull up the oath of office. There is nothing in there regarding board policy per se. Just says that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as members of the Board of Education to the best of your ability. That's basically what it says.
Dr. Kopis, I would say proceed as you would like, understanding that it's not necessarily the will of the board.
I understand.
Thank you.
I'd like to make one final comment on this if I could. When we talk about fostering relationships, that should be with every individual in the district. I don't think that's happening.
Matthews, you have anything?
And I would agree too. I think we have great systems in place to be able to build those relationships and have teachers have the proper channels to be able to share good, bad, and differences. And again, I think there's no need to create or invent something that's already in place. And I think that our staff, I believe that they're doing a great job at being intentional about getting that information with the building surveys and hearing from our building principals as they come and represent and share about what's going on. So I think we hear things, the positive that's going on. And again, I agree with the other board members that I don't think there's something that's needed or necessary.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Mr. Holbrook?
Yes, I just wanted to address over the last several weeks at a couple of our basketball games, I've had several parents come up to me and asking me a question about FAFSA. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Aid, and this is something that is a national issue right now. And the purpose of FAFSA is to determine the financial aid for a student who qualifies for both needs-based and non-needs-based aid. And what happened is FAFSA changed forms nationally, and usually those forms come out to parents in mid-October. Those forms did not come out until late December this year. When those forms, and when they launched it, what happened is it led to complications where they had to pull it offline, put it back online. Families were unable to correct mistakes that they had placed in the forms. And so it's been really a mess for several months. Why is that important? We are getting ready and preparing for high school graduation. And one of the things that we usually indicate in our graduation programs is where different students are going to college. Right now, some of that is up in the air because where they may attend may be absolutely contingent on the results of their FAFSA form. Do they qualify for Pell Grants? That all goes through FAFSA and those components. So with that being said, we are under a tight deadline to get graduation programs printed. And so Mr. Zeri and I had a long conversation about this, and one of the things I just want to point out to our parents that are watching or listening is the fact that those graduation programs may look slightly different this year from years past just because of this delay. This isn't a Hamilton City School District delay. This isn't a state delay. This is a national issue. So every student waiting on that throughout the country is under those same guidelines, and they continue to delay it. They tell us it may be late March or early April before we get the results of that. And it may be later than that. I don't know what the results are, but you know, I've had at least 4 conversations since Sunday with different parents that have approached me, understandably so, just frustrated with the process. And I want to be clear, we're all frustrated with it, but it isn't anything that, from a district standpoint, we can prevent from happening.
Any comments? Yep, thank you, Mr. Holbrook.
It is a mess right now.
Yeah, it is.
It is, and it is impacting our students on making that final decision on where they go to school.
You know, it's interesting that some of these, like swim meets, you know, when swimmers make it, you know, to the podium, they'll put up information about them and where they're going to college. And if you looked at any of them from the last
They can't.
ones, nothing,
Yeah.
undecided.
Well, the Community Foundation is working on all the scholarships too, and it's having a roll down, another effect on that too.
Because those scholarships are last dollar scholarships. So if you qualify for a Pell Grant and you qualify for some of that, that impacts the scholarship dollars through the Hamilton Community Foundation as well. So there's a huge domino impact on this. And
All
so
over the
we're
place.
working through it the best we can, but we're a little bit at the mercy of the feds on this one.
Yeah, it's a shame. Mr. Frazier, general fund budget allocation. I believe this was I believe Dr. Kopus had brought this up.
This was an
Yes.
item from Dr. Kopus that had, he had sent me an email requesting me to dig into some information, which I have done. Dr. Kopus, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, just a few quick comments. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. You're correct, Ms. Baker. I was the one who kind of initiated this, and this is a result of my visits with the schools. Frequently, the principals would convey to me that they would like to have a little bit more latitude in being able to spend some of their funds in their, I'm going to refer to it as the principal fund. Is that correct, or?
There are three ways that, and this is surrounding the issue of expending dollars for staff appreciation.
Exactly. And just a moment, Mr. Frazier. Yeah, the principals wanted to have more latitude in spending some of their funds for staff appreciation type items. And I approached Mr. Frazier about that. He was kind enough to dig into it. And I think he has, you know, some important information about how that may be possible for us to do that and still stay way within, or well within budget. So I will defer to Mr. Frazier and his expertise there.
So this, I don't want to call it an issue. This item comes up fairly often. And in meeting with the principals, I have spoken with most of them about this specific topic. And at those times, I have always encouraged them to use their PTA, PTO, some organizations or some districts call it a PTC. And that is generally what happens around the county as far as other school districts. Now, I have done some digging and have talked with some of those colleagues, and there may be a few ways that we can tackle this question and still stay within our existing budget structure. There's been some ideas thrown out among the treasurers that I think are very interesting. And if that is something that the board would have me dig further into and work with the principals on maybe implementing some of those items, I'd be more than happy to do that.
My understanding is, the principal's fund is, each principal gets $10,000 in their principal fund, that we can do a line item within that for staff appreciation and fund it. I think the principal's been asking for $500.
So within the principals fund, there's a little, it's a little bit technical, but the principals fund is actually, it's not the general fund. It is a fund that rolls over year to year, and that is not something that is district funded. As they do fundraisers, I'm sure you all with grandchildren have seen the Smensels and those types of items. That goes into their principals fund, and they have to spend those dollars per the auditor of state for the benefit of the student. So what we're actually talking about is something within the general fund, which is taxpayer dollar, which is why there are certain stipulations around those monies. But long story short, in talking with some colleagues, we've got some ideas on how to maybe implement some things that would address that and stay within existing budget structure. Really nothing additional, nothing required by the board, just some internal things that I can do in working with principals that would accomplish that.
Currently, we don't give a principal any general fund money.
Currently, for general fund, we do give them an allocation.
How much is that?
And it's based on the number of students per building. So the high school gets far more dollars than an elementary.
Okay.
And that's how that works. And there are certain line items in there. For example, there's meeting expense, which we could do something with. There is a food line item. So for example, let's say Josh calls a mandatory morning meeting at Garfield. He is able to go purchase donuts for that meeting and those types of things. And that's something that the
Line
district
items,
allocates.
Is that what we create, or is that a state created?
That is something that we create internally for each building. They have, supply expense.
Are we allowed then to create within that a line item that would be, out of that 10,000, they could use up to $500 for teacher appreciation?
There is a number of items that we could allocate dollars for that could be used for that, absolutely. There's several codes in our chart of accounts. For example, code 569 is for food. We have 432 that's for meeting expense. We have 890 that's for other. So there are specific chart of accounts, and we have to follow the state chart of accounts. All school districts are on the same chart of accounts. There's not necessarily a account object number that says staff appreciation.
Yeah.
There are a set list, and that's what I'm talking about, working within the existing budget structure, working with the principals to make that work and not necessarily appropriate any more dollars than we currently have.
I think that, based on the information that you sent us and what Dr. Kopis is saying, I mean, if you're willing to go and do that, and then let's proceed. I don't see any reason, as long as it's not a
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
going over any,
It's perfectly legal, and
That's always
it is,
helpful.
it would not be any additional appropriation. There's just a few things we've been rolling around as far as treasurers, and we know it's an issue with, not just us, so.
yeah.
Well, just a couple comments. First of all, and Mr. Frazier, correct me if I'm wrong here. Do all of our schools have PTA, PTO organizations?
I would say they all have them. Are they all equal in visibility and all of that? They are not.
Okay,
There's
understood.
some that are more active and robust than others.
Well, that's I'm sure true. Now, but in those, even those facilities that have active PTOs, our principals have no control over those funds. Is that correct?
They are basically functioning as 501c3s, and so there would be a booster president. The principal would have to go to them to make a recommendation, and it actually would be up to that booster group if they allocated those or not.
And Mr. Frazier, I'm correct in thinking that if the board decides to ask you to do this, there's no increase in funding. We're still staying within our budget.
That is correct. It would just be pretty much the sharing of ideas between myself and the principals on how
Understood.
to go about some of these items, yeah.
Okay. Well, Ms. Baker, I have somewhat of a surprise for you on this one. We agree.
Good.
There we go.
Well, see, there's always something you can agree about. So,
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Frazier.
yep. Okay. The next item, this was a letter that I'd received from the Planning Commission at the City of Hamilton, Friday, I think, or last Friday. And it's a letter of support for the bike trail, basically, the fourth part of the bike trail. I did not feel comfortable signing it as saying that I'm representing the entire board without the board seeing the letter. But I do think that the school board would be in support of making sure that they get funding for that additional trail. It goes by our Hamilton High and all, and some of those.
It's great for the community. I mean, I support it.
Mhm.
But I just think moving forward, if there's going to be a letter going out on behalf of the board, that we put it on the agenda and vote on it.
I did put it on the agenda.
This is just a work session for a vote, because
I-
there may be things in the future
If-
that we don't agree with.
Correct, but if, the reason I put it on the work agenda for this is that it did not require a board vote. I just did it as informational.
Okay, so you're not going to sign it and send it out
Yeah, I am gonna sign it and send it out.
on behalf of the board?
After, because I said, well, I could have just
They-
sent it and said on behalf of Meg Baker.
Well, yeah, you can do it as
Dr.
an individual.
Mr. Davison, I think the issue on this particular piece, and I don't
Maybe I
disagree with you,
overdisclosed.
is I think Mrs. Baker received this on March 8th. It's required to be in by March 15th, and we don't have a business meeting until March 28th. So there was a,
But moving
there was a
forward,
timing,
I would-
yeah.
yeah, moving
We-
forward.
I think the timing piece on it's what caught us
Fine
on
with
this.
Yeah, I wouldn't have, yeah. But I did not want to sign
Yeah.
something without the rest of the board seeing that, so.
I think it's great for the kids and our community, and I know they've been working on this for
Yeah.
quite a while.
It is. Okay,
One section they got done is very nice.
Very nice, yeah.
yeah,
So am I hearing we are sending that out?
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, all. 20 High Street, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, President Baker. In your blue folders, you have, for your reading pleasure, two items of legislation that will be up for your approval at the March 28th meeting. This is surrounding 20 High Street, the hotel to go in where Municipal Brew Works is, on the backside of MBW, and then also the Crawford Hoying development at the Cohen site. Mr. Holbrook had a fantastic idea. Kudos to Mr. Holbrook for recommending that I create a summary of the legislation.
Thank you.
So just to kind of run down what these pieces are. 20 High Street is a $50 million, three-story hotel, like I said, on the backside of MBW. It's a 150-room hotel in the old municipal building. The ask from the developer, which all of us except for Dr. Kopis met with, is a 30-year TIF, 100%, and a 15-year 100% CRA. Along with the resolution that we will have to pass as a school board, there's also a school compensation agreement with each of these that details basically what the school district gets for signing our name on the dotted line and allowing this economic development to continue. Again, both of these I think are very, very good for the community. But just to go into the school comp agreement for 20 High Street, it is a make-whole agreement, meaning we will get all the property tax dollars that we were due had the TIF not been in place. The CRA will take exception to that in years 1 through 15. The district will also receive 25% of the net TIF revenues after the CRA falls off, so that starts in year 16 through 30. We've also negotiated receiving half of the income tax that's generated from the property, from the development. And then if you look down, the last two bullet points I think are really important for us. We're currently receiving no dollars for that because it's a municipally owned building. As soon as that changes hands, even with the CRA, we're going to be in the black on that property. And with all the other items that we've negotiated, you can see the number there that we're looking at over a 30-year period.
Jeremy, the way I'm reading this, starting in 2025, we will receive $20,000.
Yes, if you are looking, if you can see that, I know it's really, really small, but yes, that's the estimate for the property tax that we'll be generating with the CRA in place, because that is based off land value, can't abate land value.
In addition to that 20, if there is income tax from the construction, I thought we'll get that in addition to the 20.
Is that the far right?
Correct.
Far right? That's
Correct.
far right.
Okay.
And just to, for me, that's any of the income tax. I know that we've had like $1 million caps on, not caps, but.
So there is a minimum.
Okay.
Currently, it's $2 million. So meaning, let's say construction goes on there and there's only $1,999,000 worth of work that's done over there. Now, that's obviously not going to happen. We wouldn't get any income tax.
Okay, it's
But
after 2 million.
It's after 2. Used to be after 1. The law changed
Yeah.
last year, which Mr. Rui had detailed in his wonderful presentation for us. So that is 20 High Street. Any questions on 20 High Street?
Well, what I was going to get at, starting in 2040, we'll start to receive over $500,000.
That's when the CRA falls off.
Just wanted to make that.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
with the
this
total-
one is, and that's why I kind of wanted to bring these both together to you. While I think both of these items are really good for the community, some are more financially beneficial to us than others, just based on the nature of the project. For example, you'll see even though Crawford Hoying is a larger project, it's not as financially beneficial to the district by the nature of the project. There is a lot of work that needs to be done over there and there has to be debt issued. Debt is always first priority out of the TIF fund. So we get what's left based on our negotiation.
I just sticking with the 20 High
Sure.
Street. This agreement will get, at the end of the day, the district will receive over $11 million.
Right. That's the current
That's for the
projection.
people who are watching this.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And right now, we receive nothing from it.
Here.
So.
Go from 0 to 11 million is great.
It's a no-brainer.
You use the term win-win. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, we used this term when we were talking about the PLK development over behind Meyer. For us, it's a no-brainer.
This just shows, I mean, Brad Rui's been worth what we've.
Yeah, I
we
was
pay him.
actually was going to make this comment. I need to recognize Mr. Davidson for his guidance in having us really kind of put together more of a better process. And I think with Mr. Frazier and Brad Rui, I think that people will be able to go back and look at this and say, wow, they made the right decision. So
It's impressive. Jeremy is so up on
Yes.
tips and all, and it's just a pleasure to talk to him because he knows what he's talking about.
Well, thank you.
yeah, and
Thank you. But no, thank you for allowing us to hire the expert that we
Yep.
have. Because he makes my life a lot easier. Okay, so are we good on 20 High Street?
Sure.
Okay, moving on. Crawford Hoying is the developer that is developing the Cohen site. We actually went up and visited their product in Dublin, which was amazing. But anyway, what they're proposing here is the minimum size of the project, and there's legislation in their development agreement with the city. The minimum size is $150 million. It's a mixed-use development. It'll feature retail, housing, and a hotel. Phase 1 of the 3-phase project will include a 120-room hotel, 176 apartment units, 6 townhomes, and 5,000 square feet of retail.
Now, this chart that you gave us, the spreadsheet.
Yes.
Is this just putting out phase 1 or stage 1?
That is correct. That is correct.
So this is the minimum. There could be.
So for example, in Dublin, they had a minimum of 200.
Yeah.
And last I checked, they had $800 million worth of development there. So it's a quality developer. I know the city is super happy to have them here.
They just bought the hotel, so we know
Correct.
they're here to stay.
Yeah,
They're
we're expecting
invested.
big things, so.
So Jeremy,
yes.
am I correct in thinking that the minimum project, 150 million, we expect the likelihood that will increase, or it could increase?
Could increase.
If
yeah.
it does, then the 30-year projected revenues would also increase.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this is all based on, again, it's a conservative estimate. and it's based on the information we know now. If things keep moving how they have been moving, I can definitely see us generating more than the projection, absolutely.
And if memory serves, in those conversations we had in Dublin, they aren't certain exactly what the next development will be.
Correct.
And the next phase, it's been, the market, they're market-driven more
Right.
than anything.
Correct.
else.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it could be any
they
number of
indicated the
things.
market would tell them
Yeah.
what needed to be there.
Right.
Yep.
Exciting.
I think another piece to consider with the Crawford Hoyne development is the size, 150 million. If tiffing that, when tiffing that, there's a benefit to the district when we start looking at the state formula for us as well. So there's an advantage, especially in a project this large.
Correct. Mr. Holbrook's correct. The wealthier we look as a district, the less state funding we're eligible for. So tiffing a $150 million development pulls that value off the books in the state's eyes. So that value is not going to increase, and then also our state funding will decrease. So we're kind of putting that off the books by doing this as well. So again, it's kind of a no-brainer for a project that size as well, because that only helps us on the state funding.
It also shows that, and Mr. Holbrook, thank you because of the relationship you've continued to build with the city, that it shows how important it is that economic development, how the two of us, the school district and the city together, partner for economic development, because what's good for the city is good for us. What's good for us is also good for the city. So we've got a very good relationship, and I know that Jeremy has a good relationship with the city as well. So just thank you.
So moving forward, just to kind of round out the deal, the developer is asking for the same deal as 20 High Street, 30-year TIF, 100%, 15-year CRA, 100%. Again, it is a make-whole agreement. However, every deal is different, and there is debt involved with this deal. Debt takes first priority, meaning there's less money in the pot for the school district. We've also negotiated 50% of income tax sharing. To put that in perspective, this is a larger project than Spooky Nook. The last 2 years for Spooky Nook income tax sharing, we received $75,000 and $63,000 this last year. So just to give you some idea of the income tax that we would expect to gain off the property, when right now we're only getting $18,000 from the parcel through property tax.
How much will we get in the first year of the TIF?
It's hard to say.
I just can't, from your chart.
My guess is not much,
Okay.
because my guess is that the debt's going to eat up most of the net TIF revenues to get that project going. And what we will get will be the income taxes from construction, and then once building's complete, the income taxes that are generated by the folks working there.
Okay. Well, I was just looking at, it says the annual abated school compensation. It's the last figure on that chart. What is that?
That is the amount of money that will be abated by the legislation that's going to go to pay the debt for the water, sewer, electric that needs to go over there for that development.
Okay. So it looks, for that 150, if you go down here, it's about 50 million that we're abating.
That would be correct.
I believe this will be on our,
It'll be up for your approval on the 28th.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, I know Dr. Copas has not had as much time and doesn't have as much information as the four of you folks. He and I are actually meeting tomorrow morning to discuss the finer points of this. If you have any questions regarding this, please get a hold of me. I think it's something important, and we want to make sure that you guys are clear and comfortable on anything
One
you need.
clarification, just, and it's for anybody who may be watching. At the end of this 30 years, we will have generated 1.9 million.
That's the current projection, and that is for 50% of the income tax. That's where that number comes from.
For the phase one,
Correct.
correct.
On
There
piece
could
of
be
property
more.
that we're getting hardly anything on
Right.
right
We
now.
get- We're getting 18 grand on it. I mean, as soon as construction starts, we're going to be in the black again. And we're getting something that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And they're not gonna do phase two at the end of 30 years. Phase two could hit.
Yeah.
We within 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, and then we're back to.
Okay, I think that's it for work session. Need to consider a motion to adjourn for executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Need a second?
So moved.
Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, and I just want to point out, I won't participate due to a conflict.
Dr. Kopus?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Go to a banquet.